are now going to meet every first Monday of the month, led by the President, meeting here at NETLEC to try and fast track, to try and unblock if there are any blockages. And we have agreed also on the issue of clear time frames and milestones in all the projects which we have agreed, which were identified. But again, the focus became the issue of the youth, especially the youth which is out of school youth, because we have a tendency of talking about those who are qualified, whereas we have these who tend to be the dropouts who do not have any qualifications, that our programs must also speak to those to those young people who do not necessarily have the qualifications. That's the brief which I can be able to say, but I can also allow the leadership of the social partners to also make some comments. Chief.
Thanks, Minister. I'm representing BUSA here, and just to add to the Minister's comment, I think that the President started the session with a comment that said that we need to be frank and honest in our discussions, and I think it was a very frank and honest meeting. We got the report on progress on the Job Summit commitments. We also understood that, Job Summit happened in October last year, and between October last year and now, both the social climate and the economic climate, as well as the political climate, has been difficult. And we, I think, recognize that we are trying to address job creation and deal with the commitments that we made at the Job Summit within the context of a very constrained environment, and we talked about that. I think we all recognize that the country is in a difficult situation, particularly given the data that came out in the last week, both from Eskom, the unemployment data, as well as Fitch reducing our outlook from stable to negative. And so I think the commitment, certainly from business, is that we continue to engage on this, but we also engage, certainly from our point of view, on some of what we consider some of the critical issues that we need to talk about to get investment in and to get businesses working again, so that jobs can be created. And I think the monthly meeting that the Minister referred to will be, according to the President, and this is what the President put on the table, will be a smaller meeting of the stakeholders with the President, so that we can actually get into the real hard discussions on some of the issues we need to deal with as a country. It's not just government's problem, it's all of our problems, and we need to put our shoulders to the wheel to have the hard discussions, to make the hard trade-offs, to get into the nitty-gritty of what of the tough decisions we need to take as a country. And so we welcome the President's decision that we meet once a month, that we meet as a smaller group once a month, and the bigger group can meet once a quarter or so. And we will certainly engage in those smaller groups, the once-a-month groups, to talk about some of the hard issues we need to talk about and the decisions we need to take, with a continuing commitment that we support the President. We believe that we have an administration in place now that is serious about dealing with the issues. And I think that we've reached a stage where all stakeholders recognize that we are in a crisis mode and we need to pull together to actually address that. So let me leave it at that.
Labour? Community?
Just a second. The pain. Well, thank you very much and good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Thulani Chefuta, the leader of the civil society component at NEDLAC, or the community constituency. And indeed, with the commencement of the meeting, we all acknowledged the difficult circumstances or conditions of our economic outlook, and we kept on emphasizing the hard choices that we have to make if we are to get the jobs right, which include getting all the investments we need to grow the economy, thereby creating jobs. And even on that, we're not naive to the fact that we come from experiences of jobless growth. But what is encouraging is that when we kept on making reference to the hard choices that we have to make, the president then challenged all of us as social partners to say, let's put those things on the table. So we leave this meeting with the homework of going to identify those hard choices that need to be made, such that if they are implemented, we shake the base of unemployment in South Africa. Of course, the meeting was gravely concerned on the sharp increase of the needs, or young people who are not in employment, not in education, and not in training, which increment gets up to about 455,000. Encouragingly, the meeting expressed support for the ideas that were presented by the president on what was termed the Presidential Youth Employment Plan, of course with inputs from all of us as social partners. And so that is one of the things that we think if we get issues of youth employment right, they will make a significant dent on the overall employment. And finally, we know that we took an approach, a project-based approach in terms of our agreements at the Job Summit. And we have agreed now that we must go back into those projects. We must identify where blockages are and block those immediately, and utilize the meetings that we agreed on, which are leadership meetings that will meet once a month with the president to unblock and report on progress that we're making in the implementation of those projects. Thank you very much.
No, I can just confirm that we have a fruitful discussions. Labour came here with some doubts, and we posed those questions to all the social partners, whether we're still committed to the commitment that we made in the Job Summit. Influence what was happening, and we're happy to hear all social partners recommitting themselves that commitment made must be honored, where difficulties arises must be discussed, and to that extent, where there has been an agreement that business leaders and organized labor must meet as a matter of agency to address all the challenges, including this plethora of retrenchment notices that are coming up. Of course, we discussed the question of the energy security. We agreed that the issue of ASCOM is an issue that all of us must be grapple with, and we agreed that we needed to be engaging. These are societal issues. We're asking ourselves whether we're not going to the road to IMF, and the conclusion that we made that we're not there yet. We are positive that all the problems that identified are not insurmountable, are within our reach, and we can be able to make progress in dealing with those issues. We also agreed that in working with the time frames, we have to do the impact of whatever project that we are dealing with, so that we are not just doing the tick box, but want to see whether we're making progress in dealing with those particular issues. So it was encouraging that the issue is elevated not just to any other representative, but to the top of when you got your president, you got your DP, you got the ministers. You can't ask anybody above those particular people. The leadership of trade union is here. The leadership of business have agreed, and community, that this is a project that all of us must put the hands on deck. So that hope has been revived, that under these difficult times, we should not lose hope and wait for somebody else to take decision on our behalf. So with these monthly meetings, with a fewer people, I think is the right direction. It does not mean we're dissolving the current structure. The current structure will continue working on and report on a quarterly basis. We need to look to the capacity, almost releasing people to work full time on the issues of job I think is an encouraging and brave decision that needed to be carried by everybody else. Thank you.
Thank you, ministers and colleagues from the
Are
Partner
you
Social
also calling us ministers?
No.
We appreciate that.
colleagues, it's time to raise your questions. Please identify the media house we are coming from, and then we start. I'm noting 2 hands for now. 3. Let's start ladies first. We'll proceed. Okay. I see you, Sanya. It's fine.
I just wanted to know if the jobs of
Can you please
I'm from Manuel. I wanted to know if the report is going to be made public, and you mentioned a lot about you have these 7 commitments. You've had progress on other things, there's been blockages on others, but you're not going into specifics. Are you not aware as to what's happening and what have you made progress on? What are some of the commitments that you made last year that seem to be very huge, and what are you having difficulty with?
This is
Kopano from CNBC Africa. Similar to my colleague Deboko here, I just wanted to ask if you could give us a little more insight on the clear timeframes and the milestones. What are they? Could you give us examples? Thanks.
okay. I saw another hand in the back. Proceed.
Alistair Smout from Reuters. Do you think that the people might be a bit disappointed that the outcomes of this meeting haven't produced something a bit more concrete, given the data that we saw on Tuesday? The fact that it's the highest unemployment in over a decade, and then there's been the election, potentially caused some disruption. But what are the signs of progress, the signs that this is being achieved?
Okay, can we take the last 2 at the back? Sanya, I saw your hand. Yeah. Some girl, okay.
Yeah, some can.
My question is basically, what were the issues of the bottlenecks that were raised in the report, particularly to the president, that have basically been the main publisher of by not implementing the resolutions taken at the Jobs Summit, and also what is the way forward? We hear that we'll be having these quarterly meetings, but let's get down to the crux of the business of the day. How do you implement them, and how do you make sure that jobs are not shared? How do you make sure that people are getting employment? Well, we've seen that unemployment is given to an all-time low at 30% now. The issue at the bottom of the day is how do people get jobs? How does government create a conducive environment for business to create those jobs? The real government can create jobs. Thank you.
Okay. Is that the last question? Okay, covered. Leader.
Will the report be made public? Yes. That report will be made public, and it's just going to be finalized properly and be printed and be made public. And I think no. First it had to be presented, and then critiqued, and then there are a lot of issues which they still have to deal with. And then after that it's going to be. But I think the acting director can be able to say more about that. You want to say something about that?
I think, Minister, you've basically covered it. The Job Summit team will then look into. Must I raise my voice? Okay, thank you very much. I was just basically saying the Job Summit task team or project team has taken into cognizance the comments that have been made. They are going to receive some of the comments from the social partners, and then those will then be inserted into the report, which will be circulated, so that all parties agree in terms of the content, and based on that, then it will be circulated. We are hoping that by the 2nd of September, we'll then present this to the presidential high-level team so that we can get direction forward.
You see, there's a question, before we answer this question about time frames and milestones, there's a question about the bottlenecks. What are those bottlenecks? What are those issues? If you look into those commitments which are there, almost 60% of them, they need government. It's government initiatives by the different departments. And about maybe 40% or 39% it's by business. But the major issues which have been raised, serious constraints, relate to the issues of electricity. It's a very serious matter the issues of energy. And hence then, the President is open to say there must be very tough engagements in relation to the issues of ESCOM and some of the SOEs. And because the whole economy is going to, it depends on the issue of electricity. One of the issues which was raised as a major issue is the issue of water license. It's a very major issue, and water is life. Almost every industry, they need that. The bureaucratic processes which are there in government, they need to be dealt with, because sometimes it takes so many years, 2 to 3 years, before you can be able to get that license. The issue of the visas, you would remember the visas for tourism, has come back again, that it has not yet been resolved. So those are the key issues which were raised as frustrating, which belong to the different departments. Now, one of the decisions is that we as government ministers, we must not just say it's government which is responsible. We must say which department is not moving in driving those issues. And as Ministry of Employment and Labour, we have to be very tough, follow each and every department in terms of its delivery. Then what has been agreed is to say, starting with that meeting which is going to be, the first one is, what is the date? The 2nd of September, which is the first Monday of the month, which will be the first meeting. That's where a draft program in relation to all the issues is going to be tabled by the various technical committees. But the presidency in that smaller team, they will be focusing on those major issues we have been talking about, which then says there's going to be a robust debate now, robust implementation of what has been agreed upon, and then put very clearly these timeframes we're talking about. If it's said it must be done within a month or 2 months, it must be done. When we meet in the next meeting, we will get a report how it has been done and so on. What is the other question, by the way? Samkel, what were you saying? I've answered you. Yes. You want to say something?
No, I think, Minister, there was a question on how people get jobs in a conducive environment, and to a certain extent we've dealt with it. I think that certainly from business's point of view, the most effective way of creating jobs is to grow businesses, get investment in, so that businesses can actually grow and develop and employ people. And I think it's those sorts of discussions. What we need to agree as stakeholders, what are the 4 or 5 critical bottlenecks to getting investment into the country, not just global investment, but even getting business in South Africa to invest, growing businesses and enabling businesses to them through that growth and creation of demand to actually employ people. So when Becky mentioned that labor and business will get together bilaterally to talk about some of these issues. And I think that it's very important that business and labor comes closer together on a common view and understanding of the issues that need to be addressed. We, as business, so one of the things we'll be talking about are the retrenchments. Now, business does not want retrenchments. It's not that business, some CEO gets up one morning and says, we're going to retrench 1,500 people. The environment at the moment is such that businesses are concentrating on efficiency just to keep their head above water because of the situation the economy is in. And I think that we need to get together as stakeholders to see in this context, what do we need to do, not just to create jobs, but even to retain jobs, because that's the other challenge. And the situation at the moment, the economic situation at the moment, not just in South Africa, but even globally, is such that it's becoming extremely difficult to do that. And so I think it's those sorts of issues we need to talk about. And business is very clear that, the minister talked about ESCOM and so on, and we put that very firmly on the agenda. But then we need to talk about what needs to happen to create a conducive environment for investment, growth of business, and job creation as a result of that. And so things like the visas, for instance. Our view would be that while we're working on legislation and so on, let's accept that the current visa regulations are inhibitors, and let's say we're not going to apply them. Why have they changed the law? And I think let's take those sorts of decisions. Let's take the quick wins that we can actually do to boost confidence, to boost certainty, and get a culture going again in the country that, look, we can invest and we can grow business.
Now, we can also just indicate that one of the issues was to set the regularity framework correct. In other words, there are policies that government has to change, and we understand the question of the processes that needed to be followed to change those regulations. So what was comforting was that there is a progress in almost on all those issues. Of course, that processes take a long time. But there were a number of issues that were indicated to us that were making progress. For an example, on the Productivity SA, which is the institution that is meant for intervention when businesses need a rescue kind of intervention, there's a progress that has been made up, how quick money can be released from the UIF, for an example, to deal with those particular issues. If you are looking to the establishment of a rapid response team, that has been is in a good progress. If you are talking about the training or reskilling of employees, that is a progress in dealing with those issues. So there are numbers, we can mention them, there are numbers of areas. They are not concluded yet, but the process has started, and we hope that by the next meeting we're going to get tangible progress that has been made. But we're not only doing the tick box, which we agree, it is not about the tick box. We want to do the assessment, the impact, whatever regulation has been either amended or reworked, what is the impact in relation to the jobs retention. The question of the CCMA doing something different in terms of ensuring that it assists those that have submitted Section 189 to save the jobs, that is in good progress. In relation to the farm villages, farm workers, housing, land ownership, and agropreneurship, there's a progress that has been dealt with. In dealing with metals, machinery, and mining equipment, there's a progress that has been made in dealing with those issues. If you look to the clothing, textile, and leather food value chain, the master plan has been finalized. If you look to the automotive value chain, progress has been made. If you look to the furniture value chain, progress has been made. It's not complete as yet, but taking into account where we were at that time, we get a glimpse of hope that very soon we'll be able to finalize the regulation and we're able to get results soon. So all in all is an indication that with tight time frame working together and be able to indicate when we're expecting it to be finalized will be a good progress. In the report that we have, we get this indication of issues in progress, but we don't have the timeline as to when it will be completed so that we can be accessed. That's what has been referred back to the committee. Go back, put a clear work plan, indicate who's responsible. For example, should not be saying government is responsible. It should be said which minister in government is responsible, so that when we meet next time, we can be able to pose the question to that particular ministry and hold it accountable to the progress that needed to be done.
Well, the question on the milestones and the timeframes, briefly, it's a decision that we took and instructed the technical committee to go and do exactly that and bring back to us. That does not mean there were no plans. There are plans, some of the projects with milestones, timeframes, and budgets, and responsible institutions. But what we did was that some of the things that were raised as bottlenecks that needed to be unblocked, some of which the meeting could express immediate decisions on, then the technical committee is instructed to go back, integrate those, and as the chair of COSATU was saying, then rework those milestones and timeframes for reporting back to the presidential committee. And there was a question on the people being disappointed by the decision or the outcomes of the meeting, which we were outright and upfront in indicating that we are not going to sell false hope to people about the complex issues that we are dealing with here. And so we are taking people into confidence about work that is being undertaken so that people know what are the pressures under which we do the work that we do in unblocking opportunities for people to get gainful employment. And so, if anything, people must be given true confidence that we are doing everything possible to take actions that will unlock all opportunities that create employment. And so we think that that is what people will appreciate than just a false hope that will be shed.
We are going to publish that report through the website, and as soon as it's available, you can access it and analyze it, and we will be ready to answer all the questions on any issue which you are going to be raising. And I think now we've come to the end of our short briefing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Minister.
Samkel, konto ngayifumananga wanelanga ndiyakubona. Ufuna bani? President.